Hello everyone. A very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Rahul Soni and I am Program Director at TCS IN Direct Academy Channel. On behalf of TCS IN Direct Academy Channel, I welcome you all to the session. When we talk about education in India, we can't just talk about how education is in urban cities of India without going deep into rural education. As we are aware that India is a country of 1.3 billion people, where 67% of the Indian population lives in rural areas. Approximately 196 million elementary school going children. Out of that, 146 million are enrolled in rural schools. The recent studies have shown how the face of education in rural parts of the country have developed to a great extent. But some remote areas still do need a serious checkup, with children failing to receive basic education. The school education in rural India is mostly dependent on government and government-aided schools. For rural India, journey of education is not easy. Children from rural areas face many challenges till they finish their education. In this session, we have invited a distinguished expert to talk about how education in schools in rural area can be reimagined. It's my pleasure and honor to welcome and introduce our guest speaker today, Ms. Jayalakshmi Shastri. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Rahul.
So let me give you the introduction of our guest speaker. Jayalakshmi ma'am has more than 20 years of experience as an educationist and has worked across the nation in the best of educational institutions. She is an able orator, a great expressionist whose dedication and people management skills allow her to gel with the team and lead them from the front. She is a keen music enthusiast coming from a rich history of music and in an astute veena player. She has spearheaded free education programs for rural children through Parinamika, an NGO based out of Bangalore. Her love and compassion for children is also visible in her actions for ASHA, an NGO enhancing the quality of childhood for victims of AIDS. A strong believer in holistic overall development, she brings forward a dynamic, engaging learning process truly required for 21st century school. So I once again welcome Jaya ma'am in the session.
Thank you. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be one among you over here to discuss and do something more for our society and our country.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. It's my pleasure. Ma'am, I would like to begin by asking, what does education in rural mean? What is the picture does it conjure to you when we talk about education in schools in rural area?
The picture that I can invoke as soon as rural Indian education is talked about is children being happy, eager to come to you, hug you, learn from you. They want to do everything hands-on. They're eager learners whom we have to tap that talent over there. They want more and more of it. If only we could give that. They're cheerful, they're respectful. You have all the qualities in them, but they don't know how to go about from there. And that is where we lack. So that's the guidance that they need over there. It's a beautiful place to start teaching, teach them, guide them, lead them. Here in a school, in an urban school, you're more like a mentor, but you are a real teacher over there. There are life lessons that they learn across. It's not just English, math, science. It could be even the agriculture, the events that they come across, the festivals that they celebrate. Everything is a learning aspect over there. So the entire rural education has lots and lots of potential for us to tap, and we must do it.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for your views and opinion. And I just read about that you are associated with NGO Parinamika. So, ma'am, it's not an easy task to work in rural areas for these children, because we see these children are very much, they have innocence in their nature. So with your experience in different NGOs such as Parinamika and ASHA, which are working in rural education, please tell our viewers what some of common challenges do education system in rural settings face?
Challenges are many. It's quite a challenge to start teaching over there. But two main aspects that one needs to consider before starting up is, one is the family. the family that they come from. They need to be educated. They need to be told what the importance of education is. Unless that family understands it, the child will not come into force. It's not allowed to. They'll have different events, different happenings at home, and they want the child to be involved in it rather than the education. Earlier, we would have this adult education. These days, we see that missing. If only that thing comes back and people are more educated over there, it will be a better aspect for them. One is the family. Next is the infrastructure. It is pathetic at times. Certain places are really, really bad. What do we do over there at that time? You find the classrooms, the school, all that should be very motivating for the students to come over. Even the hygiene, that also is important over there. These are the challenges, the infrastructure and the family. Infrastructure could be anything from the classroom to the school building to the laboratories. No, it's not there at all for them. How do they learn? So if these two are immediately paid attention to, students would definitely come to school every day and are rural. There wouldn't be this urban education, rural education. We wouldn't have that difference at all. Most of the time these days, we don't even have that. We all lead into a rural or we all lead into an urban road when we go about. But why doesn't the education system go over there? It's just because of this. If only we could pay a little more attention to those aspects of the infrastructure, which is very, very important, motivating for a student to come over, the classroom, the setups, the labs, we need to show them a video lesson. Where do we have all that? So for that, if these two aspects, the family to be educated and then the infrastructure, we will not have a difference between rural and urban education.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. Rightly said, family is to be educated and infrastructure is a big deal, basically. It's a big gap between sides.
Yes.
So coming to the third question, India has 196 million elementary school going children, out of which 146 million are enrolled in rural schools. And these schools are mostly dependent on government aid. How do you think the policymakers can improvise education in these government-aided schools?
Policymakers are very good. We have a lot of policies, too many policies. But the policies to be implemented or the policies to reach the right person is not happening. That is where we are. So there are a lot of policies, like there is this Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, there is a scholarship. For the last 10 days, the BEO of our area has been sending us messages to nominate students to the scholarship. And he's been, giving us deadlines, but it's pathetic. Not many are responding to his messages. That means we are not promoting students to gain that scholarship which the government is willing to give. So there are policies, but how many of us know it and how do these people know how to adapt it? So the government is good. We have free education, we have free books, we have laptops being given, bicycles were given, a lot of aspects were given. But how many of them got it? How many of them know how to get it is where we lack. So that policy, how to reach about the Gram Panchayat or somebody, the leader over there, must take initiative and make sure that everyone in his village is into it. All the teachers, the school educators over there must be involved in making sure that the children are there into these policies. So that's why I said the family should be educated. They should know what the policies are, what the schemes are. There's so many schemes, so many policies. How do we come about it? Recently, I'd been to Finland on an educational tour and we saw the policies over there. So it's a very prized profession over there to be a teacher, which is not over here. So we teachers do not even convey to the rural teachers are not conveying to the students because they know there's another extra work lining up to it. They have to do everything from filling up a form to submitting it. So they stop it over there. So to stop this, the family should be educated or the policy should reach the right person at the right time, which is not happening. Government has laid a lot of policies, incentives, structures, fees, facilities. And even I recently read about, the government is also providing provisions for you to go abroad to study. But how many of them know about it? So policies are there, good policies are there, implementation and reaching out to the rural children is not happening.
It's nice to hear that we have the policies and all this.
Yes, very good policies. In fact, there is one system, even in the urban areas, we have something called a school attendance tracking system. school academic tracking system, where every child enrolled in a school has a number. Now, how many of you know that your child has a number with it? So at the moment the child leaves the school and goes to another school, we have to share that SATS number with the child. So the government knows how to track that number and catch where the child is. And suppose a child is dropped out for some reason, the government is supposed to go and get a notification that this child is not logged in anywhere, immediately gets it. So policies are good, system is good, but how do we implement it is where, especially the rural children, they're not getting this.
Yes, ma'am, rightly said. So I just want to inform our attendees also, they can also post question in the chat box. So we can take it here and ask our guest speaker. So coming to the next question, ma'am, as you are associated with Parinamika, an NGO which spearheaded free education programs for rural children in an urban. So what advantages and role do you think rural communities can have to promote education, and how does that affect education in rural settings?
This is good. If only the rural communities take it upon themselves, things would be better. It will be a sustainable growth for the country. You will have a healthy, sustainable growth for the country happening if the rural communities themselves get involved in it, making sure that everyone is getting what they have to know. It could be agriculture, it could be health, it could be education. All these aspects, there are different people level. There are different level heads over there also. We have the Gram Panchayat, we have the medical officer, we have the block development officer. These are the communities over there which should work in their own sector, making sure that that aspect of education is reaching out to the student. And how do we do it? Again, we need the implementation. We need motivating teachers. We need one who have a lot of passion to bring it along. It's not just the salary or the schemes. I might not be interested to going over there, but I should have that passion to teach. Like I was saying, in Finland, it is more like, like how you trained over here to be a doctor. The same way over there, you're trained to be a teacher. That is the exam that you have to pass through, and only then you get the certification to be a teacher. Over here, we don't have that. We just get along with a degree and we move on to become a teacher. But the passion, the intention to guide and lead somebody is not happening. If the rural communities take up this challenge of guiding and leading them, we wouldn't be in this stage at all. It would be a different picture in this country. But how many of the rural communities are working towards that growth is something that the government has to definitely look into. It has to look into it and how they appoint the teachers. Now, appointment of teachers is not just you pick somebody over there. We shouldn't be going for the caste, creed and all. We should look into the passion they have. Are they willing to go there, do it? Very rarely we find teachers who are going out of the way. We've read about articles where teachers have crossed the river to make sure a child on the other side learns education. That's a very motivating part. But again, the community over there, it has to be. And only if that is there, if we tap on these communities over there in the rural area, definitely our economic growth will be in a different scenario, and our progress of the country will also be in a different scenario. And we have to tap, whether it is for a labor force, whether it's for the economic growth or the education, right now tap the rural children and you will get it.
That's really great. It really sounds good. When we watch the news about teachers that they are taking the challenges and going in the rural areas like doctors, as you have mentioned. So
see, now here again, I'm sorry to say this, but again, the vaccination part, it's a misinterpretation which is spreading all across in the rural areas. The block medical officer should take the lead, make sure everyone in his village is vaccinated over there. And the same vaccination is not given to the teachers over here, although we are also getting exposed to the maximum number of students day by day. So that respect to the teachers, respect to this profession, respect to the, making sure that education is the prime aspect over there. It's not just, education of English, math, science. It's about a life lesson that the child has to learn across. And these children in rural areas, they actually want something which is socially relevant, something which they can link it to why they're learning it. What is the use for them? It could be just a skill, but we have to put it across to them. And this only the rural communities over there can. We have a lot of people coming and giving you donations, giving you people coming over saying, it's my birthday, I would like to do this, or this my Sunday is an off, I would like to be a volunteer. No, but where is it? It happens only for that particular day. It's not sustained for so long. So the government should look into it along with these communities to make sure that something is permanent for them. Somebody who's there to teach them for the entire course. Could be a skill-based subject. It could be their basic education.
Right, ma'am. Thanks a lot, ma'am, for your opinion. And coming to the next question, it's related to one more challenge, basically the finance. So families in rural India are in financial burden due to various reasons. For them, their education becomes second priority. Children are forced to join income generation activities that frequently leads to increased absenteeism and dropouts. What is your thoughts on that?
This is a challenge. This has always been a challenge in the rural area because for them, family is the prime importance. But as I said earlier, if the family was educated, they would plan how to make these children work. Yes, I have to work for my family. I cannot appoint people to work for my family because I'm not in that financial position. But if I was educated, I would make sure that I have time for this. I have my vacations. During vacations, I do this extra work, or after school hours, I do this extra work. So that planning could have been done if only that family was educated. And you will find this happening where you have educated families. They do make time to make sure that the child attends the school and then does the extra work needed. But what happens most of the time is, the family is not educated. The mother does not understand the importance. She needs a helping hand over there. She pulls in the little ones to do the labor work, and the child is eager to go there. So whatever we convey as teachers, as mentors, when we go to a rural area, we tell them, it's a nice rosy picture that they get about it. But that is all. They can only dream about it. They're not able to achieve it. Why are they not able to achieve it? Again, I say blame it only on the family. It's a family which is distracting them. So in case if only we could educate the family first, tell them about it, how important it is, how to go about it. Only those children are the ones who are really paying attention to school and the education that's happening. So it is a challenge, always a challenge, especially, and they want the children to be in all the weddings, all the death ceremonies, all the village festivals. They do not want to miss this. And they always feel it is a social obligation, and that's why they want their child over there. So if a mother in the family is educated, definitely she will take a step back and send the child to school. So educating the elders, educating adult education program must come up in big drives, at least now. We've done it. I don't know why it is stopped right now. It should come back immediately in great force.
Rightly said, ma'am. Thanks a lot. And we have one question from the attendee list. Mr. Hanumant has asked, most reputed schools, elite schools, established in rural area with all facilities availed, that of cosmopolitan. Are these schools supposed to lead government or other little schools to achieve educational goals suitable to the area?
Could you repeat the last part?
But these schools also be given the responsibilities to work in that area, specifically in rural areas?
Which they do. Like I said, which they really do it, but most of the time they do not. It's only a pastime. I'd like to tell you, we also have a program in our school wherein every third Saturday, the students of our school go to a government school close by and they teach them abacus and spoken English. But it is only on a third Saturday because we are off. We made one arrangement wherein we want our children to learn about values, certain empathy, certain do something to the society. All that is something we imposing on our students, and they're doing it very happily. The way they come back on that day after teaching those students, that joy, that happiness, that satisfaction is something we cannot describe. Yes, sir, they have a social obligation, which they take it up more seriously. A part of it, right now, the government has also come up with a system called RTE, where we have to accommodate the students from rural areas into our curriculum, be one among us, which they do it in more larger scale, instead of, occupying just a huge land area over there to show up their infrastructure. A part of it is given, make them imbibe with your students, the life will change for everyone.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for the answer. And if we talk about the creativity of these rural children or overall development of these children, so we have one question: how can we design and innovate curriculum, especially for rural development or rural educational institutes?
See, when we do rural curriculum, when we have to think about it, we have to think of the occupations that they are involved in. It could be farming, it could be silk farming, it could be different water irrigation. Whatever it is, a skill base that we have to work on our curriculum. It's not that they have to learn more about English, or now the national education policy itself has changed over. Turn over to the mother tongue is what the new policy says. That's a good benefit for these people. Yes, we will work on it, but the skill over there, whichever skill they are involved, it could be weaving, it could be farming, it could be rose gardening, anything. But that skill of how to grow it should be one part of their education, whichever their family is involved in. So the family will not let them move away from there. If this curriculum is linked to what they are doing, definitely the family is also supportive, the child is also learning, benefit to both of them, and we also having somebody in support to the country where a child is growing up with good education. So curriculum should be based on their skill, which represents that particular area. So we should have various skills coming up, and we should be promoting that for these students. Rather than the general history, geography, civics, yes, they should be told about it. That can be briefly done. But skills should be given more importance in a rural curriculum plan.
So here, skill is also important. Everywhere, I think skill is important. Skill development should be there.
Yes. You need.
Just one. So coming to the next question, a teacher with the willingness to jump in and get things done will do far better in rural areas than a teacher who is used to being hemmed in by bureaucracy. Your comments on this, ma'am?
Should I comment on this? I don't think so. Any teacher who has a passion, who has a willingness to go, no bureaucracy, no management would stop you from doing it. If you have a passion, you have a willingness, you have supporting hands coming out from all directions. It could be from anyone. I don't think the bureaucracy is so bad that if a teacher is wanting to do something that they will stop. No, the teacher can find ways on how to do it. She will find ways and she will do it irrespective of what the bureaucracy or the management is forcing her not to do. No management or bureaucracy can do this. So it is only that passion that we need, the drive, to go and do it. Yes, I need to do it. I need to educate these children, not just for a pastime, not just on my Sundays, not just on now I'm off my work so I can go do some voluntary work. No, take it up as a big challenge. Take it up as a big role. Come over, do it. We need more educators in this field who have that passion and drive to do it across. So no bureaucracy can stop you. So let's move on with our vision, whatever passion that we have, will continue to be there.
Rightly said, ma'am. No one can stop teachers, and anybody who has the right passion and is hardworking. So, yes, ma'am. Saying something?
No, I didn't say anything.
So coming to the last question, what is the best way to support rural educators, and what exactly is wrong with education system in rural areas basically?
The best way to support us is to build a proper infrastructure. The wrong thing is the infrastructure. So if the wrong thing is set right, everything will be right in rural education. If only we have that infrastructure, a nice classroom for them to come, sit, learn, teachers, appointing of teacher, infrastructure, we are just not in the building also. Everyone, including anything that has to happen in a school, if it is there, even in a rural area, yes, things will be wonderful for everyone across. It is mainly the infrastructure where the children stay away, the toilets are not good, there's no hygiene. See, most of the time I tell my students, you don't come to school to learn maths, physics, science, chemistry. All that can be learned. Now with this online, such a big boom, everyone can learn it anywhere. But they come to school to learn the empathy, the social values, how to react with one another. Life lessons are taught over here. This is where I learn all these basic qualities. And for that to learning, the children in rural area also must be going to a school. What sort of a school? An area where they can sit, learn, share, talk, discuss with a mentor, or how it happens in an urban area. So that is the way they should also be having. So it is only the infrastructure. If the infrastructure, the wrong infrastructure is set right, things will definitely be wonderful there for them. That's the only thing wrong over there. Otherwise, things are wonderful. We need to tap that area, that rural area where children are passionate, children have that enthusiasm, are eager to learn, touch, feel, learn. They are very, very eager to learn. Only we have to give them that place to come over and learn, and people to make sure that learning is happening in the right way. If these two things are set right, one, infrastructure is what I would always say.
So we have many questions from audience side also. So let me take one more question. What changes are expected with the new education policy with respect to rural education?
It's going to make us one. That is what I feel. Right now, we are cut off with our spoken English. And every time we reach to a rural child, he hesitates. Although he might be speaking the right English, his accent might not be right. So it is the language barrier that's taken off in this national education policy, which is highly acceptable for us because the rural children will start thinking. Now, many of us, even over here, we are told to teach them in Kannada or Hindi, and that's how it's got to happen once the policy comes into. So definitely the barrier of speaking only in English will stop. Otherwise, the lot of facilities for the rural education, one is on the skill, one is on this language. Both are implemented in this national education policy, which is a benefit for the rural children.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for your opinion and views. So we are at the end of the session. And thank you, dear speaker, Ms. Jayalakshmi Shastri, ma'am, for your valuable views and sharing your opinion with us. I'm sure it will help teachers and education system to create more and more awareness amongst them. It was an engaging webinar. Dear participants, there is a survey link at the end of the event. Please do fill in your comments and feedback and register yourself on the channel link to view much more exciting videos. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure being with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rao. Thank you very much. It was enlightening for me also. I also learned quite a few from your end. Your questions were very interesting. Thank you. Let's all do something good for the rural children.
Yes. Thanks a lot, ma'am.